listener production.
I'm automotive commentator and journalist Greg Rust, and this is Rusty's Garage. This episode is a long overdue catch-up with the four-time Bathurst winner Greg Murphy. The first instalment is actually way back in the Rusty's Garage library, when we first launched, in fact. You can search for that later and enjoy it, or maybe even refresh your memory on some of the poignant moments in his career. Much has happened since then for Murph, so this is timely. He and I worked together for many years on the Supercars coverage in Pit Lane, and now we are more or less neighbours, not quite over the fence from each other, but not far away. So I dropped round for a coffee and away we went. The rapport beams through this conversation, as does a similar sense of humour. His dog is hanging around with us, and you might even hear a pesty summer fly too. Sorry about that. Huge thanks to those of you who sent in questions for Murph via social media. I didn't get to all of them, but where there was a reoccurring theme, we certainly tried to tackle it. For those I didn't get to, don't worry, we're going to do a Christmas Facebook Live, what has jokingly among our colleagues become known as the Grig and Grig Show, and I'll put those to him then. Keep an eye out for it. There's lots of variety in this discussion, from his awesome Dodge Charger resto project, which is finally finished and he's hoping to enjoy driving it over summer, to the work he now does for Tony Quinn's race circuits here in New Zealand and the foundation which he's immersed in. Some of the rare race cars he's now entrusted to drive, like the Ford Sierra. Yes, a Ford, that really marked the start of his touring car racing chapter, to a TV yarn recently in the Yardley McLaren, once raced by the late Denny Holm. He is passionately working on trying to improve road safety and is frustrated, as you'll hear, by the lack of government action, plus a whole lot more. We begin by unpacking his wildcard drive at Bathurst recently with Richie Stanaway. For all sorts of reasons, this was a bit of a fairy tale. You get a sense that it finally gave Murph a proper sign-off or farewell to a circuit that he's very closely linked to, something that he didn't get to do when he stopped racing supercars and doing the enduros around 8 years ago. Listen out for a moment of reflection during his final ever stint. From the Bathurst Drivers' Parade to Richie earning a spot in the shootout and Murph doing his fastest ever lap there. Can you believe it? A 2:05, some 19 years on from the famed Lap of the Gods. We begin with the way he learned his friend and longtime supporter, Peter Adderton, was planning this wildcard. Well, it was basically Pete putting it out there that the program was on. When did the notion of doing the wildcard at Bathurst come up? How did that conversation happen? What did Pete say to you about, and when did that all start?
Well, it didn't start with a conversation. It started with
you're in.
with his infamous Instagram post.
Sorry.
Infamous. And I got shown the post by, I think it was Cormac, my son. He's like, "Oh, Pete says you're doing whatever he said. I can't quite remember. I mean, it was the suggestion at that stage. You know, Pete reckons you should do a wild card at Bathurst, with Richie." I'm like, what? Oh, God, what's he up to now? Anyway.
Were we in COVID at that stage?
So we're talking, what are we? Was it like April? Oh, you could probably find it on his Instagram.
Yeah.
I think it was like April 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, 21. God,
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was April 21, something like that. He put it up, and then it all just went from there. But I mean, effectively, there was not something I was contemplating or in any way, shape, or form prepared to even consider. And actually, Richie was the same at that time. He wasn't. No one had heard from him, right? So he was still flying under the radar big time. I hadn't spoken to him since the end of the 19 championship, and not many people had. So he was very much still undercover at that point.
So did he get enthused, and then that made you feel like, well, I'd like to help this guy?
No, he didn't get enthused. So we effectively, the two of us had I ended up ringing him.
Pete does a lot of posts. You're scrolling here trying to look for it, aren't you? It's a long way back.
He does a lot of posts. So, I mean, who knows when it was, to be honest. I can't even find it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So then the phone rings and it's Peter, and I didn't even answer the first call because I knew
what it was about.
I was just like, I'm not even going to deal with this. And then he rang again. For God's sake, so I better answer the phone. And he's like, I'm like, I said no. Basically, I answered the phone and said no. And he's like, come on. It'd be great. And, he did his full sales pitch, which, if you're an Eskimo, you'd buy ice off him kind of deal, So I was like, no, mate, it's ridiculous. And I said, have you spoken to Richie? He goes, yeah, no, he's keen. I'm like, nah, I don't think that's, telling the truth. And, think about it. Oh, no, I'm not thinking about it. It's not happening. Anyway, I got off the phone and I rang Richie. Hey, how you going, mate? What's going on? I said, has Peter spoken to you? And he goes, I've had a message from him. So straight away, obviously, he hadn't had a conversation where he said he was keen, in any way, shape or form. So, Pete was doing the power play both ways. And he had a message and he hadn't spoken to him. I said, just be prepared for the onslaught. And then Richie was like, well, would you look at doing it? I said, nah, not a chance. He's like, oh, no, that's fine now. No, I'm not interested either. And then, October this year we did Bathurst together.
I know. So what changed? What?
We both actually sort of then just sat and looked at the whole idea and we both actually came and I could tell that Richie was actually in a pretty good space, and we had a good conversation. How you going? What's going on? He's really good. Yeah, blah blah blah. And then it just evolved, and then the both of us sort of went, oh well, what would be so bad about it? I mean, what an amazing opportunity! What an opportunity! And then I just sort of started to think about what we could do and what it mean for Richie, and that sort of became the impetus of the whole thing for me was, getting Stanaway back in a car. And, it's like, well, I mean, it's a goal that I could set, I suppose. And, I mean, I struggled with it for a long time, just being a bit worried about, getting back in a supercar to actually compete and be somewhat kind of respectable, that was my biggest concern.
Because of the level of competition and all those things?
Everything, and just the capacity that's required to actually put into, driving a supercar, regardless of doing it at Bathurst. And again, that preparation and mental preparation, the physical preparation which, I'm really happy with myself that I did do all the physical stuff, but it's just that mental side of it too, getting your head back in that space of that competitive mode. I mean, it's always there, it doesn't go anywhere, but being able to apply and the effort that's required mentally to be competitive and apply yourself and focus and, it worried me doing a double stint. I was like, holy man, that's going to be a tough ask doing a double stint at Bathurst and not making a mistake. My last couple of runs there weren't exactly memorable. The last one wasn't memorable. Wasn't memorable because of issues and problems that James Courtney and I had. But the year before, I stuck it in the fence. I mean, it was just a real horrible thing to happen.
Did that knock you around that?
It just knocked me around in that I was just so angry and disappointed in myself and that car and the preparation for that race too, just limited preparation in 13, not driving the car enough, not spending enough time, in the seat, the way the rules and regs were back then, no tyres, you couldn't, all you had was old tyres to go testing on, and we went to Winton a few times and it just, I was much better prepared going to Bathurst this year than what I was going to Bathurst in 2013. And also I think because I'd been doing some GT stuff and bits and pieces through the last year or so as well with Shane Helms. in the Renault, and
had you put the fun factor back into it maybe with some of that?
Definitely. All that stuff's just fun. I do that because I enjoy it. I don't have to do it. I do it because I enjoy the company of the people that I do it with. I enjoy driving the car. It's good fun, and we have a few laughs, and it's no stress. Absolutely zero stress. So that is fun. But that kind of thing, driving a GT car at some of the circuits around New Zealand and spending an hour and a half, hour 40, hour 50 in the car in one go is good prep. It's just like doing mini enduros. So that kind of stuff, and the concentration side, the mental side, all that really did help in my lead up this year to racing, because I got to actually focus on trying to drive a fast car fast for a long period of time. I don't doubt at all that was good, very handy prep along with everything else.
We had a little false start, didn't we? Because
totally.
2021 was meant to be the year that it happened. I freakishly got bloody quarantine. You couldn't get it, neither could Richie. I mean, they were just the challenges that everyone was facing at that stage. Was there a point there where it was like, okay, it didn't happen in 2021, we'll extend it to 2022, or was there you may not go ahead with the wildcard this year? Was there a period at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, definitely. Well, but that whole thing was incredibly stressful. The end of 21, dealing with all that and the pressure, and we were dealing with obviously the ridiculous MIQ situation, which you had to go through several times and deal with this lottery system. And we look back on that now and just go, what were we doing? Seriously. I mean, what an absolute shocker of a system and an idea that whole thing was. And that was all part of, this period of time that we were trying, and Bathurst got to, COVID was still happening in Australia, so it got delayed and was put into December, and it gave us more time, and all that just kept building and building and building. In a real negative way, because our preparation was terrible. We hadn't driven a car. So it was tougher on Richie and I, and that whole the planning and just the constant toing and froing and stuff. It actually started to get me quite depressed actually through that period. So I was actually quite glad that. I was really happy that it got pulled, that the pin got pulled. I wasn't happy about the fact that the wild card was potentially done and dusted, but I was happy that it didn't happen, because it was just gonna be a waste of everyone's time and effort and money. And it pressed on for too long. Mm-hmm. The thought that something was going to happen, and we were going to get
last minute Larry
and
stuff,
changes to the government's bloody regulations, all that kind of stuff. But it was actually getting quite depressing. So it was the best thing that happened was that it got turned off for those reasons. But we were uncertain about what the future meant for the concept and if it would happen again. But everyone agreed it was the best thing to do. We'd run out of time. So let's reconvene in 22 and just see what the go is. And it got resurrected reasonably early. Everyone, Erebus and the crew and everyone there was wanting to follow through and make it happen, because they'd put a lot of effort in, obviously, into preparing a car and building a car, and it was, there was a lot of excitement around it. So it would have been a waste not to have continued. And anyway, it all fell into place much better, and we actually did everything we needed to do. The testing, all the other stuff associated. We were able to celebrate it. We were able to promote it. We were able to, do things with the fans and give it the everything it deserved, the recognition and the time that it deserved. Yeah.
We had a great time with the training at EIT with Roy Hafner and some of the crew over there who actually came to Bathurst with you and got to experience it, which was great. So the build-up was awesome. What was it like when you got in the car for the first time at Winton, and what feeling did it leave you with? Because it had been a while.
Yeah, it was actually quite nerve-wracking, doing that first run. I mean, that was going to be mentally a significant moment, right? So you come away from the first test and, it's been a struggle and you've got more questions than you've got answers for and stuff. Then it was going to be like, I was worried about that. I was worried that was going to be the way I felt at the end of it. Mm-hmm. But I came away at the end of it actually pretty comfortable and actually, with a lot to think about to move forward, to be able to move forward as far as speed and stuff goes, but quite comfortable in the car, able to be quite consistent. You know, it wasn't difficult, it wasn't hard. I mean, I wasn't on anywhere near Richie's pace, but I felt for where I was at and what I'd, had been doing and the length of time I'd been away from the game, I actually was pretty happy. So that actually was like a big, sigh of relief. And then I actually became, quite excited about, the next time getting in the car.
Excellent.
And so that was good. And then, the next test made some more progress, and it just, felt a bit better. And
you had time in between to sort of reset it.
And you don't even, sometimes you just need that time, and naturally or subliminally things, evolve, and you understand now. So you've got an understanding now of what the car's like. So when you turn up next time, you go back to that point straight away. That's your new baseline, right?
Yeah, cool.
And then you move forward again from that point. And that happened for all the tests. And the beauty between it was that Richie and I were in the same seat. We were both comfortable in the car. The car was inspiring to drive, as in you there was never a moment where you were or fighting it, and knowing that all I needed to do was just keep improving the driving side of things and leave any other bits and pieces to really Richie to work on as far as setup goes. And again, feedback wise, we were very similar, and there was a lot of simplicity around it. No, didn't need a separate seat insert. Pedals were in the right spot. We both left foot braked, which made it easier too. Just, I don't know, it's weird. I get in a supercar and I have to left foot brake, but I drive a GT car using my right foot to brake. It's bizarre, I don't know, but we're both very comfortable left foot braking a supercar, and it has its benefits, but it also has its negatives. But it worked for both of us, and so the car, the way it was set up, pedals wise, all that kind of stuff was very easy and simple, and worked for both. So there was some real synergies there that made a big difference and sped up the process. You
said before you were keen to champion that whole thing of Richie and maybe getting another go and so on. Was he immediately quick? Were you reminded straight away about what a talent he is?
Yeah, it just solidified it straight away. He got in the car and the team and the crew were like, that's not been too difficult for him, has it? So yeah, he just. He was like
crime that's been on the sidelines.
He was a duck to water. It was just duck to water. He as soon as he put a race suit on and put his helmet on, he had not put a helmet or a race suit on since the end of 2019. And he put it on again this year, the first time, and just clicked back into where he should have been. And it was it proved to everybody, and not that it needed proving, but it just solidified the fact that he's a race car driver, and that's his natural habitat.
Good headspace for him too, because he wasn't coming in to sort of prove anything.
Oh, great headspace, yeah. No, we'd had great conversations, and it started in 2021 when we started the process through our going and announcing and launching the program or launching the wildcard. Our conversations have been very positive, and it was just awesome to listen to someone who'd realised a whole lot of things and had managed to actually unpackage so much of the issues and the problems and the things that were affecting him, and he'd worked it out, and he'd 100% worked it out, and so his mind was clear. It was amazing, because sometimes people don't recover from those situations, and he was in a serious situation at the end of 19 through just a whole host of negatives that had forced him into not a great mental space, and he came out the other side of it, and it was incredibly strong, and it was a great space for him to be in, with not having any pressure. He didn't, he set personal goals. And I think he was achieving all of them. Well, he surpassed probably some, but his the mental power was a massive strength. He didn't. Yeah, he was doing it for the right reasons. He was doing it for his reasons and his reasons only. And whatever might come from that, if something good comes from that, if there's an opportunity or whatever, then so be it. But if it didn't, this was going to be a much better way to sign off from being a race car driver. But fingers crossed, and that and I'm pretty sure there'll be some things that come that give him the opportunity to actually showcase those skills we saw again, even more so. Maybe.
Good, he deserves it.
He does.
And a race like that is the sum of many parts. Your training, your testing, the fact that you so seamlessly, worked well together from a feedback point of view. No seat insert needed, as you said. But for me, looking on the outside in, a little bit of fairy tale in that too. I mean, what a fantastic culmination of things. Probably your last Bathurst 1000, bringing Richie back. The week went unbelievably well for you, mate. I mean, 2:05, fastest ever lap around the mountain that you've done. Awesome. Just awesome.
There was lots of box ticking. That went a little bit fairy tale in our way, because these things can quite easily go the other way, can't they?
I mean, did you think, for example, when Will Brown and Frosty had that incident at Pukekohe, was it in jeopardy then?
I think it was. I mean, there was definitely question marks. I mean, it was genuine. It wasn't. We weren't playing up to that. I mean, I saw the crash and was like, holy, and then had a look at the car, and the Erebus boys were having a good look over it while it was sitting in the garage there at Puke, and it's like, far out. That's
heavy.
That's significant. I mean, and it was really, just about everything can be fixed, but it's the timelines. The timelines were so tight, and they were in another country. Everything had to be flown back to Australia, which was, luckily all that went to plan. And then the crew got to work. So, but the car needed to be delivered to, Erebus's fabrication shop and be analysed and evaluated before really they knew. But man, they got into it, and they just nailed it, absolutely smashed it out of the park. So listen, I think there was some jeopardy. Fortunately, it didn't get to the point where there had to be a plan B sorted in a short period of time. So it was a little bit nerve-wracking there for a little while.
What did you walk away with on the Monday? I mean, you had all your family there to see it, which I think's awesome. Rock solid result for you. Great for Richie. What did you, when you drove back from the mountain on Monday, what did you talk about?
Yeah, not a lot.
Were you wounded or you just tired?
No, I definitely wasn't wounded. Mentally wounded. It was, it was just a massive week, really, and it happens every time at Bathurst. If you don't have success, that forces you into going and feeling like rubbish on Monday morning because of certain alcohol intake. Then it's just the mental come down of it all, and it is a big come down. I mean, the adrenaline's huge, and it was just that whole experience that week, turning up, driving up there on Tuesday, being able to talk our way onto the circuit to do the traditional, kind of lap as soon as you arrive, and we didn't get to do the full lap because there was work going on, but we managed to drive to the top of the mountain and just start to, take in the atmosphere. At that point, it wasn't pissing with rain. And just start to feel it and actually pinch yourself that it was actually happening, kind of thing, because the whole idea was a bit surreal, really. So that was critical, that important. And then the Wednesday, you go and do the driver parade again. It's 8 years since you've done I've done the driver parade, and you're like, wow. And it was almost like going back to doing it the first time.
Mega.
Even the guy that yelled out in the crowd driving up the main street of Bathurst, Murph, where's your fucking wheelchair? Even that wouldn't have, once upon a time that wouldn't have been funny, but it was funny this time. So that was good. And then, even doing the autograph session, after, to be completely honest, after so many years of driving, autograph sessions become pretty hard to handle. But it was nice to be a part of that one again, it's and the people and the fans, they just are. It was a reminder again. It was a real reminder of how incredible the fans are. They're incredibly passionate, and they stand there in the pissing rain for I don't know how long, couple of hours, waiting for us numbnuts scribble on their posters and their merchandise, and it's so all that stuff you've taken for granted for so long. I got to experience it again and understand just how special it actually is. So those things were really cool, and and then to be able to go and get in the car and actually feel pretty comfortable, and I remember I was coming towards the end of my last stint on Sunday afternoon, and I took a moment there to reflect on, the sun was out at that point, and you across the top of the mountain, and you can see all the colour on the right hand side from all the fans and the flags and the people, and you see the colour, and that was a moment to reflect and go, holy moly, man, this is incredible. This really is absolutely incredible. Here I am driving a supercar again at 50 years of age, across the top of the mountain at Bathurst, and it's like, there's not many better things that happen in your life than this, and I really did feel very privileged to have that opportunity, and the fact that I had enjoyed it, and it hadn't been miserable, and it hadn't been things happen during the race, and bits and pieces, but that's all part of it. None of it matters. So I actually got a moment to really actually reflect on that, and it was it was an amazing thing, and I'm very thankful to really at the end of it all, as much as I probably don't want to admit it, but thankful to Pete for having his weird and wacky idea.
Okay, does anyone else have goosebumps? This chat with Rusty and Murph is flowing, so let's keep it moving.
Couple to finish this little chapter. Shane Drake reminded me recently when I caught up with him, well-known Kiwi chicane racer himself, just about some of the sacrifice, right, that you made as a young racer, going off with your dad, no money. I think you might have been washing cars during the week to try and help raise money for karting and things. I think your dad had a Sigma back then or something, didn't he? When you were cool car.
Company car.
In that period of reflection across the top of the mountain, did you pause to sort of think, far out, for the bloke from Hawke's Bay that didn't have a huge amount of cash in the back pocket to go motor racing when it all started? No,
not really. I think that's happened in the past, but there's been so much water under the bridge. I think I've sort of moved on from that. It was more about the fact that I finished up in 14. The last few years of my career were pretty average, pretty lackluster. Certainly my last couple of full-time years were a bit average. I mean, we did finish third in 2011 at Kelly Racing there, but really there was very few and far between results, and and my full-time career sort of finished on a pretty big low, and I just sort of disappeared, and then went back and did the Enduros with HRT for a couple of years with pretty limited kind of success, So I think it was more about that felt better,
a nicer send-off.
Yeah. But a complete, and the beauty of it was totally unexpected, totally out of left field, and it actually went pretty well. It did. Well, it didn't go pretty well. It went incredibly well. Finish 11th or 10th or 8th or whatever. It doesn't. It didn't matter. I mean, I think I said after seeing Richie do what he did in qualifying, and Pete was the same, and to be in the shootout, unfortunately didn't get to happen, but we're in the shootout. I mean, we'd already achieved a lot more than most of us. I think Richie, he had more to want to do, just because he wanted to be back there doing everything and doing it at his absolute best. But for the rest of us, I mean, we could have switched off there and just called it quits, and been incredibly happy. So, to actually be there, finish that race, I mean, that was an achievement, probably one of my bigger achievements, to be honest, that'll stick with me versus a whole lot of others that when I was actually racing as a professional.
Amazing. Wow. People have asked via social media and stuff about, I mean, you're clear, you're not a professional race car driver anymore. That's clearly the last Bathurst 1000, but as you reflected before, you've done some GT racing in that cool Renault with Shane Helms. You've even got to race against your son, Ronan. Will you still keep doing a little bit of that in New Zealand, still keep having a steer every once in a while of something here, even if it's not in a supercar?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the plan. I enjoy doing that stuff, and the historic stuff too. I've had some amazing opportunities over the last few years with my good friend Peter Sturgeon and driving some of his historic cars, his Group A cars, and I can't wait, hopefully, to get back to Phillip Island for the historic meeting there, the beginning of the year. That was actually beginning of 2020, but just before all this COVID crap we were at, went to Phillip Island with his M3, and it was one of the best meetings I think I've ever been to. It was just so much fun. And I enjoy doing that, driving some of that historic stuff. And he's got the peanut slab Sierra Cosworth that I drove at Pukekohe. I just get such a buzz out of doing that stuff these days, and love those cars, love the era, love the history. So I think there's more of that on the table as well, which is where I want to be, and some of this endurance stuff locally and whatever else comes. But it needs to fit within that realm of just absolute dead set fun and enjoyment.
I'm glad you bring up the peanut slab car, because lots of people have asked about that. What sort of memories did that evoke, driving that in the support acts at Pukekohe? Pretty cool.
The fact that it is so period to what it was. Nothing has changed effectively in that car since 1992. I drove around Pookie and it was my first thoughts were, my God, this thing's terrible. God, it's awful over the bumps. It was bloody leaving the ground, and the steering, it's got no power steering, and it was just ripping my arms off. And I go, God, and then I went, hold on, this is exactly what it was like in 1992. But because I was just like this young guy, like deer in the headlights kind of situation. It was like, you didn't think about it. You just got on with it because that's what it was. Yeah. But you've driven too many good cars, and cars with power steering, and cars that are sorted and refined since then, that it really was a beast. But that's what they were like, and that's what I love about it. And any opportunity to drive stuff like that in the future, I'll be right into it. So it was just mega, and just a real fitting sort of timing thing. Totally. Again. It's 30 years since I'd driven the car.
Final Pukekohe.
That was the last time I did drive the car, was at Pukekohe on that circuit. So yeah, lots of little cool things there that I'm very thankful for.
Left-hand drive. I think it's an ex-Gianfranco Brancatelli car.
Yeah, it's a Wolf built Sierra Cosworth. So
did you crank the boost? How much did you?
Oh, listen, mate. It's pretty high tech. There's a rocker switch in the down on the I want to say console. It's not even a console, but there's a little rocker switch on the start panel, and it's either 400 or 540. So yeah,
you choose.
Yeah, you choose. I was warming it up on 400, and then I'd flick the switch at the start to put a bit more boost in, and off she goes. But nice. It was wild, absolutely wild. But it was and such a neat thing to be a part of, actually at that Pukekohe round too, to actually be driving something, and
massive crowd,
and part of it all was just amazing. Just great moments that are so significant.
Cool. While we're on this thread of cool cars you've had the chance to drive in recent time, you're doing some great stuff with your good buddy Stephen McIver at Sky Speed each week, and that involves testing some cool things every once in a while, or sampling them. Couple that spring to mind in the last couple of years. Capri. Tell us about that, baby. It was a Zac Speed Capri,
Group
wasn't
5
it?
Zac Speed, yeah.
What was that thing like?
Again, Shane Helms has got that car, and it's such a significantly iconic looking car, right? Just anyone that's has been through following touring car racing, through from 70s, 80s, 90s, all that. I mean, this thing is just such a special thing. So it's a genuine Zac Speed car, and I got to drive it a couple of years ago. Fingers crossed I get to have a drive of it again at some stage. We're off to the George Begg Festival down south next year, so that's Excellent. At the end of March, and I think Shane's going to bring that car down there. It'll be a wonderful place to drive it around. We'll be around Teretonga, so fingers crossed that might happen. Just glorious. You have this perception around, as I say, like the Slab. I mean, it was a late 80s car. You have this perception about stuff that's old, that it's not going to be great, or it's not going to be good to drive, or it's just going to be agricultural and all this kind of stuff. And then you drive it and then you reflect and go, back in the 80s, the 70s, whatever. I mean, think what people were doing in the 60s and the 50s.
But that was cutting edge then, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you go, well, they were clever. They were, they were building stuff. They had understanding. It's not like they were numbnuts building these cars. I mean, they're clever people. And you drive it and you go, oh my goodness gracious me. The smarts and the engineering and the way the car felt, I mean, just sublime, just beautifully done. And everything works just like it should and like you'd expect it would in a more modern, design vehicle. It's still analog, which is great. Everything's analog. There's no electronics helping you. There's no switches and no paddles on the, for gear shift and compressors and hydraulics, and it's all analog, but just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Did everything that you expected to do, and just a pleasure, but also an honour to drive something like that. Just mega.
Let's underscore that word, because honour really filters into driving Denny Holmes' machine very recently at Hampton Downs, Yardley McLaren. How did that come about? What was that thing like? Give us a little bit on the history of the car too.
I've actually driven it before. I drove it a few years ago. I can't remember exactly. It was way pre-COVID, so maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I suppose, at Hampton Downs, and kindly was allowed to do that. The Giltrap Group owned that car. Preserving a very important piece of wonderful history, and also history with Denny Holm. So a 73 car. Mate, a DFV. It's got to make a DFV in the back of it, for goodness sake. Just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And you slide into that tub. I mean, it's an aluminium, obviously, tub and everything, and again, it's one of those cars that you look at, and everything's so simple, really, in its concept, right? So, but it's still the performance and the way it feels and the way it goes, and is just absolutely stunning, and the gearbox is just, again, wonderful. But it was a production standard, sort of gearbox back then. But it really just is just glorious to drive, and I feel, again, one of those things that I'm very privileged to actually have a go in, because it's as far as history goes, it's such an important integral piece of
New Zealand motor racing history.
Well, and also
globally,
Denny Holmes, and what he achieved as a Formula One driver. It wasn't massively successful in this car, but it's just a beautiful thing to look at. And I think I revved the engine. The DFE had been basically freshly rebuilt, and it was just stunning.
You stopped yourself. What'd you rev it to?
I got up to about what did I get up to? About 8, 9, just under $9,000, and obviously they rev through to 10.8 or something, I think, is where they sort of used to drive them up to. So I that's the kind of thing that I just absolutely love.
While you're finding that, give me a sense of mindset when you
he got pole position at the very first race in South Africa, and I'm pretty sure this has actually become harder to find than I thought it was. I think he won. I think it was the Swedish Grand Prix. Jeez, I'm terrible at remembering some of this stuff. So so that was really where the details of the car were. And what it was about, but it's lovely that it's been retained here and been restored to that beautiful condition.
I've known you over time with some of your associations with KTM, which you've had for 20 years. I mean, amazing period with those guys. You do some stuff with Polaris now as well, but you've got this great sense of get on it, get in it, give it a go, enjoy it for what it's capable of. But what's the mindset when you get entrusted with something like that? explore it, but with a sense of preservation because it is such a beautiful thing? How do you, you're wanting to make sure that shifts are nicely done, and what do you?
Well, yeah, you do, but I mean, the thing about it is it's. I've fortunate to drive a lot of race cars over a long period of time, and you've just got this, a pretty good understanding. I mean, it's slicks and wing car. It's a H pattern gear shift. Got a heel and toe, and the pedals where they're supposed to be, and so you understand pretty clearly, and have a pretty good expectation of what the performance is like and what you need to do to drive it. So, and it had, big slick tyres and all that kind of stuff, and they were, in this case, they were new, so you knew they were going to be very good. Brakes, everything's new in the car. I mean, you've got to ensure that you're comfortable and confident with the person that's actually prepared these things too. You just want to go dive into something that's been sitting around for 15 years and someone's just given it a kick in the tyre and put some fuel in and fired her up, because that's
off
probably...
you go, mate.
Off you go, mate. So, and especially something that's as powerful and as performance orientated, but also this is an incredibly expensive car too. So, but, you never drive these things 10 tenths. But you want to explore. You want to make sure that it, you get a feeling and a vibe for it, and people want to see it done like that too. The Giltrap family wouldn't want me to be tootling around at 4 tenths of pace and sort of just not actually exploring, not the limits, but exploring something that's on its way to a limit, I suppose, because
Nice.
that they appreciate that as much as anybody, and that's the beauty of it. So, to be trusted with something like that is also, I'm obviously pretty lucky.
I want to get to a special resto project. When you came on the podcast last time, the car was getting ready to be sent to America. It's now come back. We'll talk about the Dodge in a second. I want to, just in the little gap here, your mate Tim Lay in Orange in New South Wales, has he secured the old Formula Holden that you had back in the day?
Yes, he has.
Someone tracked that down in America, didn't they?
Yeah. So he did. I tracked the car down. Well, no, I didn't. One of the Formula Holden started to have a bit of a resurrection in Australia, which is awesome. So a few more people.
Some cool stuff on Facebook you can find of those guys.
And that process started actually when I was over at that Phillip Island historic meeting in February 20.
Did you get all fired up about another project?
Oh no, there's a few wonderful cars there. There's single seaters, and I got talking to the guys, some of the Formula Holden guys, and then they were talking to me about some of my cars and bits and pieces, and then I got sent an email by one of them going, just FYI, here's your old 92, one of your 92 Reynards. It's in America, and I think the guy wants to sell it. Blah blah blah. So I got in contact with the guy, and it was an awesome car. But then I got all excited. And I'm like, God, what am I going to do with that? It's just more money, and it wasn't expensive. The car was, there was no point in trying to haggle on it because they didn't want a lot of money for it, and it had hardly been used since it had gone to America and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I sort of was mucking around, and then I think someone else found out about it or whatever, and then I passed up the opportunity, and then it got bought, and then Tim bought it off. I think whoever bought that and bought it, and it came to Australia, and he had driven that car, and so it's gone to a really good home. It's awesome that he's going to have it. They were spectacular. They were such good fun. They're amazing chassis. The 90s Reynards and that era of F3000 was a pretty amazing era of 3000. But they built great cars, and fast cars. It'd be nice to have a Mugen or something in the back of it rather than a V6 Holden. But they were still very quick, and lap records around the place. I think maybe I've still got a couple of official ones in New Zealand,
excellent.
And I don't know if it was that. No, that car that Tim's got has got a lap record. I think it still holds at Teretonga actually.
Okay.
I think.
Wow.
I think it does. So anyway, they were fantastic. Yeah.
Have fond memories of Murph in a Formula Holden. I was pretty green and new to commentary back then, working on the PA at Eastern Creek, trying to learn the craft in the early to mid-90s. They were and still are, in my opinion, cool cars. We're not done yet with this next chapter of Rusty's Garage with Greg Murphy. Head back to the library when you're ready and enjoy another instalment, another helping. By request, Murph shares more of the restoration journey of his beautiful 1969 Dodge Charger. From working with the Ring Brothers and doing things by FaceTime and email during COVID as the project ticked along in the United States. Plus his work around a scholarship program helping the next generation of racers, and his doggedly determined bid to change the thinking in government to improve road safety.